Hey there, how's it going? I'm so glad you are here. Hope you're doing well today. I wanted to share with you guys my experience getting an IUD. And what does IUD stand for? Let me write it out here on this whiteboard behind me. So IUD stands for intrauterine demon. Just kidding. As you know, IUD stands for intrauterine device. So why did I decide to go with an IUD? So for us in my family, I want to say we're done having kids. I feel like my husband is more on that side of the fence. He's done having kids. However, I've always wanted to have 3 kids, and I don't know. I could probably do a whole nother video on that. So that's where I'm at. I definitely, the thought is in my head that I maybe one day will try for a 3rd. However, I will say once I had my 2nd baby, there was certainly a sense of like completeness, happiness. Like I'm totally fine with just the 2 boys. But there is part of me that still like wants to try for 3. So however, I'm kind of in like a gray zone, I guess, so to speak. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's definitely something that I'm gonna have to convince my husband on having a 3rd baby. So we'll see where that goes. I'll keep you guys posted on that. And if you have any ideas on how to convince your significant other, your husband or whatever, on having another child, please comment down below. I'd love to learn your secrets. But anyway, with the IUD, of course, as you probably know, it's a great long-term effective means to birth control. So I think with the IUD I got, it's good for 10 years. So I actually ended up getting the copper IUD. It's the Paragard, I think is the brand of it or whatever. That is the one I went with. And it's great because I took the pill in my earlier days of life, my younger years. And of course with a pill, you've got to take a pill every day at the same time. And now that I'm a mom and like crazy busy and like chaotic and all that, I don't have time or the brain power to even like to remember taking a pill every day, and I don't want to have to worry about doing that. So the IUD gives me a sense of like peace of mind. I know that I'm covered. I know that I'm not going to be getting pregnant. So that's a huge part of it for me. The other thing is that it's comfortable. It's not something that you feel or anything like that. You can still function normally, your normal, daily life and everything. So that's another reason why I went with the IUD. So another reason I went with the copper IUD is because it is non-hormonal. There isn't a hormonal IUD available, but I just didn't want those hormones running through my body. I want my body to function as normal. I still want my body to ovulate as normal. And the other thing too is like I was worried about the hormonal IUD impacting my ability to breastfeed and produce enough breast milk, which I'm sure that is not an issue, but that ran through my head. So I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go with the copper IUD, not have to worry about those issues. So I just want to reiterate the importance of birth control. This is something that I actually talked about in my What I Wish I Knew Before Having a Baby video. Here's a little link there for you. And as well, I don't really have to go in a lot of detail, but of course, obviously birth control is important if you do not want to have a baby, but especially if you've had a baby or you're done having babies, you definitely want to consider some form of birth control. It obviously does not have to be the IUD. The IUD is for long-term use typically, but you can certainly have the IUD whether you want it to be a long-term or short-term thing. But you definitely once you have a baby, you want to use some form of birth control because for me, I got pregnant relatively quickly. Not really, I guess. It was 8 or 9 months after I had my baby that I got pregnant, but something that was not planned at all. And of course, I'm not like, I'm so thankful I have my 2nd baby. Like I wouldn't change anything for the world, but it's just something you definitely want to have a plan for to prevent getting pregnant too early or too soon and unplanned. Of course, my midwife discussed all of the potential side effects to the IUD and everything before I made the decision of getting it. Of course, there's a few, but the one that comes to mind is that it could like pierce through your uterus or migrate out of your uterus and implant somewhere else in your body, which now that I'm saying that, is like super freaky and scary. However, the chances of that happening are very, very low. So that didn't really bother me too much. The other thing is, of course, like it coming out and you not knowing it or whatever. So of course you could get pregnant. Again, that's a risk I was willing to take, I guess. So those are some of the things that I knew, before having it placed. Of course, after having it placed, there's a few, side effects that could happen as well. And I'm going to talk about those a little bit later. So the 2 placement options that was offered to me was to have it placed immediately after delivering my baby. So after they check you out, of course, they spread you open, they check out your vagina, they make sure, to repair any tears that have happened. And of course, they allow you to get rid of that placenta that's up there still. So you kind of have to like birth the placenta. And then they would place the IUD. So that was my plan going into it. However, my midwife unfortunately overlooked that, even though it was in like my after-birth instructions or whatever. So, which I'm totally fine with, no worries there. I'm okay with this. But anyway, so I ended up having it placed 6 weeks after having my baby, which was the other option. So just kind of chatting a little bit about the actual procedure and what I experienced. I know the procedure is supposed to be pretty quick. However, one interesting thing that happened to me during my procedure was the IUD that she used. There's little wings on it. I guess let me kind of illustrate this, but there's little wings, and these wings here basically like spring open once it's in place. So basically it goes in like with the wings together, and then once it's in place, there's like a spring or some sort of trigger device that's used to kind of pop them open. I don't know how to illustrate that there, but anyway, hopefully you get the idea. So anyway, the spring loaded part of the IUD was very, very, very sensitive, so it would actually spring open prematurely. So before it was in its proper place. So the midwife tried like multiple times to try to get it in place before it would spring open, and of course was unsuccessful. And I know she tried to do that because she wanted to save the money, I guess, because they're pretty expensive. So she didn't want to just have to throw this one away because the reimbursement isn't, I guess, that great. I don't know. That's a whole other issue. So anyway, it was not successfully placed. So she ended up getting a whole brand new IUD kit to place. So needless to say, I was laying on the table for like a lot longer than I had to be, which was kind of uncomfortable because of course they use those, are they septums? I think septums. I don't know. Those things that kind of open your vagina nice and wide and open. They open you up so they can see what they're doing. So I was like laying there with those things wide open and my legs out, all of that, the uncomfortable side to having people down there looking into your vagina. It's obviously not comfortable, but anyway, so I was in that position for a lot longer than I should have been. But anyway, I'm super thankful that she got a brand new one to use because I would be super worried that it was placed correctly and in the right place and all of that. So I don't have to worry about that. So once it's placed, once they get it nice and secured up there, again, those little wings pop out, it's secured. Then there's a little string that comes out and it's kind of like they describe it like fishing line. It's like plastic and it's kind of thick. So those strings come out and they trim them to a certain length. I guess it just depends on your uterus and vaginal canal and all of that. So anyway, she did trim them, and basically those strings are used to remove the IUD later on when you want to have it removed. So some of the side effects that I experienced immediately following the placement, I did have some mild cramping for a few days, and I think I had a little bit of spotting, but nothing major. And those those side effects are completely normal, and I knew about that going into the procedure. So another interesting, I guess I don't even know if it's a side effect. I don't think it would be a side effect, but something that's pretty rare, I think. And this is getting into potentially the TMI, too much info, but whatever, I want to share my life. I want to share what I experience and this and that. So hopefully my husband doesn't care. So, well, funny enough is during sex, my husband could actually feel them with his little dinger, his dingaling, his pee-pee, his manhood, his penis. So he could feel it during sex. And I think it was more so in different positions or whatever, but it was very uncomfortable. And he described it like something like tickling like the head of his penis. Like it would like brush up along the side of his penis. And it was you know, of course the penis is pretty sensitive, at least especially that part of the penis. So during sex it was really uncomfortable for him. So I ended up going back to my midwife and requesting having her trim the strings shorter, which is an option. So I went back and she did, she trimmed them so short that they're like, I think they're barely coming out of the uterus. So when I want to have it removed, she told me that I have to come in and see a special doctor or go to a special clinic, and they're gonna actually have to use an ultrasound, I believe, to help them remove it because those strings aren't dangling out. So they're gonna have to use a special device and everything to help remove it when I want it removed in the future. So anyway, that's not something that is very common. Your significant other, your dude, your husband, your guy or whatever is not really supposed to feel it, or if they do feel it, it's like not, I guess it's not like it doesn't impact them that much. I don't know. So that is definitely something that can happen. So just keep that in mind. So let's chat a little bit about my periods. My period came back around 6 months after I had my baby. And I did experience some very heavy bleeding, I would say, for a few days, and some heavy cramping as well. And I realized my periods are longer in duration. So they're like 6 to 7 days long, which kind of stinks. And it's still the case to this day, even though it's been like over a year now since I've had it placed. My periods do tend to be like a week or so in duration. Actually, I should say the heavy bleeding and the heavy cramping lasted for like 4 periods. So now I'm not having those issues at all. So I don't really have the really heavy bleeding, and that heavy, more severe cramping is not an issue anymore. The other thing I've noticed is that my period, so my cycles are like, there's like 30 to 40 days between my periods now, which before having kids even, they were like around that 28 to 30 day duration. So there's like 28 to 30 days between my periods. But now I've noticed there is like a bigger gap. So I think at this point in time, like my body is still kind of regulating a little bit, trying to get back to like, or get into like a norm. But I'm thankful that I'm not having like the heavy bleeding and like the heavy cramping. So I'm totally fine with where I'm at, especially considering I have a long-term form of birth control that I'm used. And like I said, it's doesn't interfere with my life at all. My husband does not feel the little stringies anymore, so that's good. So with all that to say, I definitely recommend the Paragard copper IUD if you are interested. If you have any questions, of course, let me know down below so I can help answer any questions. Or if you have the copper IUD, you know, comment down below too what your experience is. All right, so that was my experience getting the copper IUD placed and kind of where I'm at today. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you. Stay cool, be strong, and I will see you again in the next video. All right, bye.